There's a handful of certainties in life. There's death, there's taxes, and then there's Colorado head coach Deion Sanders landing some players in the transfer portal.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I am Kevin Borba, the host of Locked On Buffs. I also cover Colorado and all things college football over at Athlon Sports. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast over here on Locked On Buffs, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so I can keep my job and we can keep having fun, keep it up with Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffaloes. They had an eventful past few days in the transfer portal, and I think we need to talk about it because, again, I think they land two players, right? One of them is at a position of need. The other was a position of need that I think Deion Sanders is tired of having one of the worst groups in the country at. So let's start with that one, the latter. The Colorado Buffaloes landed offensive line transfer Cooper Lovelace from Northwestern. Now, 7-year guy. I believe he benefited from the Diego Pavia rule or the COVID rule, one of the two. He's a seventh-year senior, like I said. Started his career at Butler Community College, which is one of the powerhouse JUCOs in college football. Spent 3 years there, 2 years at USC, and then this past season at Northwestern. He did take a visit to South Carolina, so he had some pretty big programs coming after him. 6'5", 315 pounds. Could play tackle, could play guard. I think he's more of a swing guy for the Buffs. I don't know if he starts, but I do think he brings experience and more depth, right? According to PFF, he graded out as a 61.4, and he only gave up 1 sack and 566 snaps this past season at Northwestern. Started 9 games, so Big Ten starter, 9 games, played against Michigan. So, again, you're getting a lot of experience here. And if you're Colorado, you're also getting another offensive lineman, which now makes it 9. And I'll run you through sort of the offensive lineman that they're getting because there's a type here, right? Cooper Lovelace, Northwestern, Big Ten, started 9 games, experienced, could play multiple positions. Walker Anderson is sort of the anomaly of this group. 6'5", 290 from UCLA, still a Big Ten guy, but didn't play, former walk-on. Andre Roy Jr., Maryland, offensive tackle, 6'6", 294, played in a bunch of games for the Terrapins. Larry Johnson III, 6'7", 350 from Tennessee. He played in quite a few games for Tennessee. He was projected. I think he started. I do think that he was going to lose a spot to David Sanders, the 5-star offensive tackle. So he was an experienced guy, right? Xavier Hill, offensive lineman, Memphis, 6'4", 320, All-American Athletic Conference selection multiple years. Mana Taimini, Ole Miss, 6'4", 345. Zylan Chrysler, 6'6", 335. Illinois. Ton of experience there. Then they also got Aki OG from Texas A&M, 6'4", 315. Some experience there. If you go through the linemen, the offensive linemen that they added, outside of Walker Anderson, who transfers in from UCLA, maybe has a good frame and body to work with for the staff. And Xavier Hill, who may be the best offensive line transfer addition of them all. They're all from SEC or Big Ten programs, and even Walker was, but he was a walk-on, so he didn't get to play. But for the most part, they're all from SEC or Big Ten programs, and they all have starting and or extended playing time experience, right? Colorado has brought in linemen year in and year out and not been able to conjure up a starting line that is good enough to A, protect the quarterback, and B, establish a run game. So they went out and they're getting experienced guys. I've talked about this multiple times. I feel like this group, there's 9 of them now. I feel like 9 players, counting Jordan Seed, counting the other freshmen that they brought in. If you don't have a solution here, I just think you need to focus on or figure out a way to change the strategy of building your offensive line. Now, I think that's easier said than done. I'm not going to pretend like that's just a walk in the park. Otherwise, Deion Sanders would have done that already. So you add an offensive line to Cooper Lovelace, who's experienced, can do a little bit of everything. I even saw a video of him doing the splits. Big-bodied guy. Will probably play some crucial snaps for the Buffs this season. Now, I like the addition. he's not the only transfer portal ad that they made this past week. They also got Shaun Myers from North Alabama. He wears FCS program. He's joining as a grad transfer in his career with North Alabama. 105 total tackles, 2 picks, 6 pass breakups. He was only able to play 1 game this past season due to injury. As a sophomore, though, 58 tackles, 4.5 for a loss, and 2 of those interceptions. So he was a junior college All-American at Hawkins College in Ohio. And yeah, I 6'2", 220. And here's some of the offers he had: New Mexico, Kent State, and a handful of other programs of that caliber. Now, am I saying that I don't love this addition? No, I'm not, because the linebacker group for Colorado, to me, is still very weak. I think if there was a position group that stood out like a sore thumb in terms of weakness in recruiting, it would have to be the linebackers, right? I think last year they really were bailed out by Levante Bentley turning into what he turned into. And then Nakai Hill Green was coming off some time at Charlotte, where I don't really know if he was getting the buzz that he needed or was hoping for. But he turned into a star for Colorado, and then they lose him to Bama. So this linebacker group for Colorado I think it's weak. I think it's the weakest position group on the team, even including running backs. I would say running backs and linebackers are pretty on par for how weak they are. So they needed these transfers, right? I think for the offense line, even though they're bringing in 9 guys and they already have Jordan Seaton, right? You need 9 of these guys to fill 4 spots, and you need 9 of them. And I also forgot to mention Zarian McGill. He was an all-conference player from Louisiana Tech at center. But you bring in 9 guys. You need 9 guys to fill 4 spots, and you need them to do it well, right? The offense line has been a habitual weakness for Colorado under Deion Sanders. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, I think, mask those issues a lot more than people realize. And when you don't have a NFL caliber quarterback, because I do think Shedeur is that, and you don't have a 2-way star in Travis Hunter who could sort of do a little bit of everything, I think it makes sense to this doesn't feel like a panic move, but it certainly feels like we have to have a combination of guys who could play in here somewhere. That's what it feels like to me. Linebacker wise, it's like, okay, we got the best available that we could, right? I don't know. I like Martavius French from UTSA. I think Reginald Hughes is going to be decent, but after them, there's little to no depth, right? And they haven't recruited the position well. So it'll be interesting to see how linebacker pans out for this Colorado team. And that being said, maybe they're not done, right? Maybe they're not. There's still guys in the portal. Over 4,000 guys enter their names into the portal. And I think a little over half or around half have found a home. So there's still thousands of guys in the portal that Colorado could kick the tires on. But they've had a pretty big spring. I think these were additions 14 and 15 for the Buffs. So pretty big deal, right? I like the aggressiveness. I think that they're trying to solve these issues. Whether or not it will come to fruition, we'll just have to wait and see. Did Deion Sanders make a huge mistake by speaking out for Shedeur Sanders and the NFL draft drama? Let's talk about it. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center, so you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you just stop managing your money and you start building your wealth. They have surprising insights. When I started using Monarch Money, I learned just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. Got a wedding coming up. Got to pay for linens. Got to pay for napkins. And Monarch Money is going to help me do that. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I'm Kevin Borba. Cover the Buffs for Locked On, and I also cover them for Athlon Sports, among many other things over at Athlon. So I'm talking about sports 24/7, and make sure to give me a follow if you would like to keep up on all the latest. So if you guys remember, one of the biggest storylines coming out of the NFL Combine was how poorly Shedeur Sanders did. Now, and I think Colorado fans get a little defensive about this subject matter, and I don't know what to say because I'm not in the room. I can only go off of what I was told, right? I talked to people around the NFL, around the NFL draft, and for the most part, what was being reported was what I was hearing, right? There was multiple people who came forward and said, yeah, Shedeur was not interviewing well. It sounded like, to be frank, he bombed his interview with the Giants by being upset that they called him, or by being upset that they called him out for missing. They gave him a look or something. He wasn't able to identify the mistake. And there was also reports that he went into meetings listening to music, and one report out there said that he took a phone call in the meeting. Again, we weren't there. I have multiple stances on this, right? I think it's unfortunate that this is coming up again because Shedeur Sanders is going to be the most critiqued athlete in this class, regardless of like Cam Ward went number 1 overall. We're not going to hear much about Cam Ward, right? Cam Ward could, I don't know. I don't want to put anything on Cam Ward, but I'm just saying you're not going to hear much about Cam Ward. That being said, you go on social media and you'll see the Browns media asking Kenny Pickett if he could feel Shedeur's aura. You'll hear the media asking Joe Flacco if he's mentor Shedeur or how Shedeur is as a teammate, right? You will see the NFL itself posting about Shedeur. He is by far the most famous rookie in this class. That being said, the more this comes up, I think it just, unless someone who could do us the ultimate favor. Let me get to this before I dive into what Coach Prime said. The New York Giants, right? They released their interview with Jackson Dart. They were one of the teams whose interview Shedeur reportedly bombed, and I think the best way to see what's true, what's not, is for them to release the tape. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, it basically comes down to he said, she said, right? It's going to be the Sanders camp saying that's not true, and that's going to be reporters such as people from like CBS and ESPN and all these other people saying that's what I was told, right? It's going to be someone who's involved with it and reporters who are reporting the story, and their credibility could be snatched away by it not being true. So, I mean, I don't think the Giants will, but it's like that would solve a lot of these mysteries, and it's going to make someone look really bad. I don't know who, but it makes someone look really bad. That being said, Deion Sanders recently went on a podcast, and I don't think he really helped. Right? He went on this podcast, and he basically was just saying how Shedeur, he called the reports foolish. Like this is what he said. Quote, "It did hurt, but the Bible says God used foolish things to confound the wise. There was some foolish stuff that went on, but that gave them something that they needed. Like that edge Tom Brady had, it gave them the edge that you had. It gave them the edge that I have. Folks said we weren't going to be nothing. Now we have to prove that. It gave them the edge that they needed, both of them." And then, I mean, this was one of the reports that came out. Todd McShay from The Ringer. Shedeur didn't have a great interview with Brian Dable, the New York Giants head coach, and a private visit. An install package came in. Preparation wasn't there for it. He got called out, didn't like it, and Brian didn't appreciate him not liking it. And then there was other people who said, I forgot who reported it, so I don't want to put someone's name out there incorrectly, but there was reports that he just didn't seem interested. There was reports that he took a phone call, was listening to music. Either way, Coach Prime comes out and says that, and then Booger McFarland goes on first take and says, "Well, I think it's the correct reaction. I think it's a coach. It's a father defending his son, understanding what he heard, understanding that Sanders' name has been kind of slandered, especially during the pre-draft process. Everybody's trying to figure out post-draft why Shedeur Sanders slid. Here's what I'll say, though. I think some of this stuff wasn't made up. I heard some of the things that Deion Sanders was talking about. We all have relationships. We all have people who tell us information. They help us prepare to do our job. I heard some of the same things. Some of these things weren't necessarily made up. At least I don't think, from the people that I trust who told me things." And then he says, "So I think two things could be true. I think that the information that was out in Shedeur came from a lot of people that a lot of people trust, and I think they're credible. I also think that Deion didn't believe it. Just doesn't believe that his son would do some of those things. I don't know. I wasn't in those meetings. I just know covering this draft, trying to figure out why this young man slid from where we all thought he was going to be at worst a late first-round pick. maybe early second to fifth round. I think we're all trying to figure out pieces together. And then Jason McIntyre from Fox Sports said this is why people didn't want to draft Shedeur, because Deion Sanders is going to go out there and slander anything negative about him. And I mean, I'll be frank about this. I'll be blunt. It's a lose-lose situation for the Sanders family from now until the end of time, right? People are going to cover them differently. They have more hype. They have more buzz. And they also, they aren't shy about airing out their grievances or airing out their feelings, right? You think this was just a coincidence that Coach Prime went out here to say that, like, Shedeur, this isn't true after the draft, right? You think he was never going to address that? The problem is, and I think most coaches, like, if they went out there and said Quinn Ewers from Texas isn't a astute quarterback who understands concepts well, I think Steve Sarkisian would do his best to go out there and be like, yeah, he does, right? That's what you're supposed to do as a coach, right? And I think it's harder for Shedeur and Deion, Coach Prime, that is, because it's his father, because Deion Sanders is so, for as likable as he is, I think he's a great thing for the sport, great name for the sport, great person, character for the sport. There's a lot of people out there that don't like him. So anytime there's an opportunity to twist what he says, or anytime there's an opportunity to sort of take a silver lining that doesn't work with what he's saying, people will do it, right? Some people see Deion Sanders defending his son and being like, that's not how he is, right? I saw Deion Sanders talking about the fact that Shedeur played for 6 coordinators in 4 years, and you're telling me that he wasn't able to understand an install package? Listen, we weren't there. Unfortunately, neither was he, right? So we only know what's being reported from these meetings. That being said, people are going to twist everything Deion Sanders says, and now he looks like the overbearing pageant parent who is like, my son would never do that. And it's like, in his eyes, he probably wouldn't. Like, he raised his son better. He coached his son better. Colorado is one of the more strict programs in college football, right? There's shirts are tucked in. Everyone's wearing the same stuff. No earbuds, no hats, no, I think no slides, I think is one of the rules. Like, Coach Prime is all about etiquette. He is all about making sure that his guys are prepared to be at the next level. So I have a hard time believing that Shedeur Sanders just showed up and completely was like, you know what, double bird to the, you know what, like double bird to the, I'm not obviously going to double bird. So these are just 2 digits, 2 fingers, double bird to you and everyone on this team. Like, I don't want to play here, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. I would be shocked that that's true. Now, if you told me that he struggled with stuff on the board, because that was a lot of what the reports were saying, maybe it was. Maybe he wasn't prepared for the looks that he got from them. It happens, right? It's not great, and I don't know if that's the reason he fell to the 5th round. But I do know that every time Deion Sanders will say something about this, people are just going to use it against Shedeur and say, this is why no one wanted him, because his dad's going to get involved, and now it's no longer just Shedeur the adult or Shedeur the Browns quarterback. It's now Shedeur and his father, right? And that was a lot of the chatter too before the draft was, as soon as Shedeur fell, and I said the same thing, and I'll own up to it because I think I'm 1,000% right. As soon as Shedeur fell out of the first 2 rounds, he's being viewed as a backup quarterback. When you have a backup quarterback, you don't want your backup quarterback being more famous than your starter. 2, you don't want a backup quarterback who's distracting, right? And I think this is the sort of distraction that I was talking about, where it's like someone asked Deion Sanders about his son falling in the NFL draft. Someone asked Deion Sanders about these malicious rumors that possibly impacted his son's NFL career, and he answers them, but it's Deion Sanders, right? So it's not just like, I saw someone make a comparison to Will Howard, and it's like, Will Howard's dad didn't complain about him going in the 6th round. Maybe he did. I don't know who Will Howard's dad is. I'm sure he's a great guy. Maybe not. I don't know, but we don't care. No offense to Will Howard's dad. I'm sure he's a nice guy, assuming he's a nice guy, right? We don't care what Will Howard's dad has to say, right? Will Howard's dad was not an NFL legend. Will Howard's dad's not a Pro Football Hall of Fame member. He's not a dual sport professional athlete. He's not one of the most iconic athletes to ever walk the face of the earth. He's Will Howard's dad, right? So I don't get why people are saying, oh, Will Howard's not doing this. Because 1, Will Howard's dad doesn't, it's Will Howard's dad. No one cares. 2, Will Howard's dad doesn't have a platform like Deion Sanders does. So it's a tough situation, because I understand wanting to defend your son and former player, but I don't think there's a win in the situation. You guys comment below. What do you think of this, right? Should Deion Sanders address the situation moving forward? Should you just leave it be and just let Shedeur do his thing, or keep airing out whatever he feels needs to be said, right? Because no one can tell Deion Sanders what to do. That being said, just because no one can tell him what to do doesn't mean we have to agree with what he's doing. And if you do, that's great. I just love to know why. I just think it brings unnecessary attention to Shedeur that he doesn't really need right now as he looks to fight for a starting spot in the NFL. When we come back, we're going to talk about the 3 key position battles that the Colorado Buffaloes will have this fall camp and heading into the 2025 season that I think they will define the 2025 season. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you podcast. So you need to make sure to like, subscribe, follow, so that way you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. I'm Kevin Borba, the host of Locked On Buffs, and I'm talking about 3 key position battles. Let's run through them. Right, I've been seeing some depth charts be released recently, and I like some of them. I dislike another. I think that there's positives here, some positives, negatives there. That being said, I think that there's 3 positions that really stand out to me as like, okay, these will define or help define Colorado's season. So let's start on the defensive side of the ball, right? I think the corner spots are all pretty much locked up, right? I think I look at DJ McKinney, RJ Johnson, Preston Hodge. I think those are your 3 corners, regardless. Defensive line, I think it's pretty straightforward, right? It's Arden Walker, Amari McNeil, Jaheim Otis, Samuel Kunalola. You could probably throw in Quincy Wiggins somewhere, either at Walker or Kunalola spot. Either one. That's where we got there. Linebackers, I don't think they have enough depth to really have a position battle. So, I mean, shout out to those guys. And then I look over to safety. I think Tafiq Bayard was great in the spring game. Carter Stottmeyer, I think, has shown bright spots. That being said, I think they brought in so many safeties that they are not convinced with one of these guys. And I'm not saying it's Carter. I'm not saying that he isn't good enough, or I think he very well could be the starter. But I think they wanted more depth there for a reason. So I think that safety spot is the one where I think there could be a bit of a battle, right? Because here are some of the guys in the mix. You got Noah King, the 4-star recruit. He started his career at Kansas State for like 2 months and then came to Colorado. You have John Slaughter, Tennessee transfer, didn't play much, and I mean is looking for an opportunity to make an impact. Same thing with Terrence Love from Auburn. I think that's another battle there, right? Who is going to be the running mate for Tafiq Bayard, right? And I think you could argue that maybe RJ Johnson doesn't have the 3rd spot locked up at corner, but I think safety is going to be a pivotal position for Colorado, because whether people realize this or not, and I don't think most people do realize this because they don't get covered the way they should, the Big 12 has the best group of quarterbacks in college football, or one of the best groups of quarterbacks in college football, right? You have Sawyer Robinson, Caden Salter, probably, most likely, maybe, I don't know. We'll see. You have Devin Dampier, Jalen Daniels. You have Sam Levitt, Connor Weigman from Houston. There's just so many talented guys in the Big 12. Avery Johnson. I feel like I'm forgetting some, but the Big 12 is talented, right? They have a lot of good quarterbacks. They're going to be airing that thing out, and you need defensive backs who can make plays and help make plays in the passing game, the run game, whatever it is. And so when you lose both Shedeur Sanders and Cameron Craig, I mean, it gets tough. And so we'll see how those guys adapt, and we'll see who steps up and emerges as a starter. Next position where I think the battle, as I hiccup, gets interesting. I mean, you can't really say it's a position. We'll call it a group of positions, because then we'd have like 7 battles. Offensive line. The only spot right now that is claimed is Jordan Seedens, right? 5-star left tackle, started right away for the Buffs. I think he's locking it down, and next to him, like, I expect it to be Xavier Hill, Xavier McGill, Zylan Chrysler, and a combination of Larry Johnson and or someone else. But who's going to be those 4 guys next to Jordan Seed, right? Colorado has had they've given up 94 sacks on Shedeur Sanders in 2 years. They've ranked as the worst rushing attack in college football for the past 2 years, or at least around the worst rushing attack, 130 something. And also, they've yet to have someone rush for 400 yards in the season. They've yet to have someone rush for 100 yards in a game, right? So you may think that's a running back issue, but a lot of this comes from the offensive line struggles. And so until the offensive line is better, the other position groups are not going to be able to succeed, right? So the offensive line needs to be better. And I think that they brought in 9 transfers for a reason. And then they also brought in Chauncey Gooden, 4-star offensive lineman, Carday Smith, 4-star offensive lineman, in their recruiting class. And then they did bring in Jay Gardenhire, but he ended up leaving the program. So you're bringing in 11 new offensive linemen to contend for 4 spots, not including the guys who started last year, whether it's Tyler Brown, Phillip Houston, whatever it is. Like there's 16, 17 guys competing for 4 starting spots, right? And it sounds like a lot, and it's like, how could you not find a starting offensive line? But Colorado's had struggles, right? And they need it to be good. They don't have Shedeur. They have a new quarterback. They have, whether it's Caden or Julian Lewis, they need someone, whoever it is, to be protected. And that leads me to my last position battle. It's quarterback, right? I think it's the most important position in sports, by far the most important position in football, and it's by far the most important position battle for the Buffs, right? Caden Salter, multi-year starter at Liberty, Conference USA MVP in 2023, didn't have a great season last year. I had Brian Smith, our transfer portal insider, to come on and talk about it, and he sort of just was like, yeah, I mean, he lost a lot of talent around him, and it was getting complicated at Liberty, right? He just wasn't able to elevate his performance because the team around him wasn't as good, right? So does Colorado have the proper pieces around him to succeed? I think so. Does he bring more to the table right now than Julian Lewis? I think so, right? He's a dual threat, big arm, can scoot with the best of them, probably the best dual threat quarterback in college football. That being said, Julian Lewis is a gifted quarterback, right? Great arm, wise beyond his years. He should be a senior in high school by the time he takes his first snap for Colorado, assuming it's next year. Should be getting ready for senior prom or winter formal, not playing against a Big 12 opponent. So that quarterback battle, and Colorado's win total is like 6.5, I think it is. So it's basically like, is Colorado going to make a bowl game or not? And I think having the right quarterback will answer that question, right? Are they able to win games with either one of those guys at quarterback? We will have to wait and see. That being said, the team goes as the quarterback goes, right? So if they have issues there, they're going to have issues everywhere else. So those are the 3 position battles that I think are the most important. We have safety, we have offensive line, or at least the 4 other offensive line spots, and then we have quarterback. You guys comment below, which position do you think is the most important battle? Let me know what you think. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit that subscribe button right here, and follow. Give me 5 stars wherever you get your podcast so we can continue having fun covering the Colorado Buffaloes. I will see you guys tomorrow.